The great hall of the Dark Moon Pack was a sea of nervous energy and flickering torchlight. It was the night of the mate ceremony, the most important night in a young wolf's life. This was the night the moon goddess would reveal the destined pairs, the soulmates who were bound together by an invisible, unbreakable thread of fate. For Briana, it was a night she had both dreamed of and dreaded since she was a little girl. Her eyes, the color of warm honey, scanned the crowded room until they found him. Alpha Conri. He stood on the raised platform at the front of the hall, a mountain of muscle and quiet authority. His dark hair was swept back, and his jaw was set in a firm line, but Briana could see the slight tension in his shoulders. Even the mighty Alpha felt the weight of this night. Briana was not a prominent she-wolf. She held no special rank. She was kind and observant, spending more time in the pack gardens or the library than training in the fighting rings. But she had one secret she had carried in her heart for as long as she could remember. She was deeply, hopelessly in love with Conri. She loved the way he cared for the elders, the focused look in his eyes during a challenge, even the rare, quiet smile he sometimes offered. She knew it was a foolish dream. An alpha was always paired with the strongest, most remarkable she-wolf. Everyone knew that. Destiny had a plan, and Briana was sure she was not part of Conri's. The ceremony began. The pack's old shaman started the ancient chant, calling upon the moon goddess to bless her children. One by one, young wolves felt the pull, a strange and wonderful tug in their chest, leading them to another person across the room. A gasp, a smile, a tearful embrace. The hall filled with the joyful sounds of discovered love. Briana stood near the back, her arms wrapped around herself. She felt nothing. Her heart began to sink. Maybe she had no destined mate at all. Maybe she was meant to be alone. And then it happened. A jolt, like a bolt of lightning, shot through her entire body. It was a feeling of pure, right, perfect warmth that started in her core and spread to the very tips of her fingers. Her head snapped up. Her eyes, wide with shock, met Conri's from across the entire length of the hall. He had felt it too. He was staring right at her, his usual mask of control completely gone, replaced by a look of stunned disbelief. The invisible thread had been pulled taut between them. The noisy hall seemed to fade into a dull hum. For Briana there was only him. A slow, wobbly smile spread across Briana's face. It was real. The love she had carried for so long wasn't foolish. It was destiny. The moon goddess had seen her heart and answered her silent prayer. Conri was hers. He was her mate. He began to walk, his steps slow and deliberate, down from the platform and through the crowd. The pack members, seeing their alpha move, fell into a hushed, expectant silence. They parted for him, creating a path that led directly to Briana. Whispers began to ripple through the room. Briana? The quiet one? Is she the Luna? Briana could hardly breathe. This was the moment. Her fairy tale. Conri was now only a few feet away, his dark eyes locked on hers. He was so close she could see the gold flecks in them. He raised his hand, his fingers reaching out to touch her face to seal their bond. Briana's heart was beating so fast she thought it might leap from her chest. She leaned in slightly, ready to feel his touch, ready for her life to truly begin. Crash. The massive wooden doors of the great hall were thrown open, slamming against the stone walls with a sound that shattered the sacred silence. Everyone jumped. Everyone turned. Standing in the doorway, silhouetted by the moonlight, was a she-wolf. She was tall and breathtakingly beautiful, with sharp features and long flowing black hair. It was Sierra from the rival Ridge Top Pack. And the moment she stepped into the torchlight, a new energy flooded the room. This energy was different from what Briana had felt. It wasn't warm and right. It was sharp, demanding, and overpowering. It was a wave of pure raw power that made the air crackle. Conri, whose hand had been inches from Briana's cheek, froze. His head whipped around to look at the newcomer. A second pull, 100 times stronger than the first, yanked at his very soul. The connection between him and Briana snapped like a frayed string. The warmth in Briana's chest was instantly replaced by a cold, hollow emptiness. The hall was so quiet you could hear the torches sputter. Sierra smiled a slow, confident smile and began to walk forward, her hips swaying. She didn't look at anyone but Conri. The mate bond between them was so visible, so forceful, it was almost a physical thing in the room. It was the bond of an alpha and his true destined Luna. A bond meant to create a powerful legacy. Conri looked torn. His eyes darted from Sierra's approaching form back to Briana's face, which was now pale and confused. He saw the hope dying in her honey-colored eyes. He could feel the ancient laws pressing down on him. An alpha's duty was to his pack. A strong mate meant a strong pack. The bond with Sierra was undeniably the stronger one. It was the one destined for a leader. The choice, though it tore at him, was clear. He took a step back from Briana. The small movement felt like a shove. Briana's breath hitched. His face hardened, the mask of the Alpha returning, locking away any doubt or emotion. He looked at Briana, but his eyes were now cold and distant. His voice, which Briana had dreamed would one day whisper loving words to her, rang out in the silent hall, cold and final. "I reject you, Briana. You are not my destined mate." The words did not feel real. They were just sounds, but their meaning was a knife to her heart. The rejection was not just words, it was a magical severing. A painful, wrenching sensation tore through her, as if part of her soul was being ripped away. The gasp that echoed through the pack was not for her. It was for the drama, for the shock of it all. Tears, hot and immediate, filled Briana's eyes, blurring her vision. She saw Sierra place a possessive hand on Conri's arm. She saw Conri turn his full attention to the new she-wolf, dismissing Briana from his world completely. The humiliation was a fire on her skin, burning worse than any physical pain. The whispers started again, but now they were laced with pity. Poor girl. What bad luck. To be rejected by the Alpha. She couldn't stay. She couldn't bear to see them together for another second. With a broken sob that she tried to choke back, Briana turned and ran. She pushed her way through the crowd, ignoring the stares, and fled the great hall. The cold night air hit her tear-streaked face as she ran into the dark forest, the joyful sounds of the ceremony now a cruel mockery behind her. Her dream was over. Her heart was shattered. And she was completely alone. The days and weeks that followed the mate ceremony blurred into a long gray haze for Briana. The vibrant world she had once known now felt muted and distant, as if she were watching it from the wrong end of a telescope. The rejection was not a simple heartbreak that could be soothed with time and kind words. It was a magical wound, a deep, aching emptiness in her chest where the mate bond had briefly, gloriously bloomed. It was a constant, phantom pain, a feeling of being forever incomplete. She moved through her duties like a ghost, her smile a forgotten memory. The pack members, at first full of pity, eventually returned to their own lives, their whispers dying down into an awkward silence whenever she passed. She was now a living reminder of a fate narrowly avoided, a story of what happens when destiny changes its mind. She avoided the main areas of the pack territory, especially the training grounds and the Alpha's house. The few times she saw Conri from a distance were like a fresh punch to the stomach. He was always with Sierra. She saw them walking together, Sierra's arm linked possessively through his. She saw Sierra ordering the warriors around, her voice sharp and commanding. Each sighting was a little lesson in pain, a confirmation that her life had been utterly rerouted while his had continued on its destined path, just with a different passenger. Briana began to spend all her free time in the deepest, most isolated part of the western woods, a place where the ancient trees grew so close together they blocked out the sun, and the only sounds were the rustle of leaves and the chatter of squirrels. It was here, in the lonely quiet, that her true transformation began. One evening, the weight of it all became too much to bear. The loneliness, the humiliation, the searing pain of the broken bond, it all crashed down on her at once. A storm of grief and a hot, surprising fury rose within her. It wasn't fair. She had done nothing wrong. She had only loved him. Running deep into her secluded grove, she threw her head back and let out a howl. It was not the graceful, melodic howl of a wolf calling to its pack. It was a raw, ragged scream of pure anguish that tore from her throat, a sound of a soul being ripped in two. As the sound ripped through the silent forest, something extraordinary happened. A warm, silvery light began to emanate from her own skin. It started in her chest, right where the pain was the sharpest, and spread outwards like liquid moonlight, covering her entire wolf form in a soft, shimmering glow. The pain did not vanish, but it shifted. It melted under the warmth of this new energy, transforming from a crushing weight into a deep, resonant strength. The forest around her seemed to lean in, the leaves trembling not from wind, but in response to her power. She could feel the life force of the ancient trees, the sleepy dreams of the burrowing animals, the very heartbeat of the land itself. In that moment of absolute brokenness, Briana discovered who she truly was. The moon goddess had not abandoned her. She had given her a different gift, a rarer one. She was a Luna healer, a wolf with the innate power to mend, to soothe, and to feel the deep connections of all living things. This was her true destiny, not to be a trophy for an alpha, but to be a guardian of life itself. From that night on, Briana dedicated herself to understanding this new power in secret. She practiced in her hidden grove, learning to channel the silvery light. She found she could mend a bird's broken wing with a touch, her energy weaving the bone back together. She could encourage a dying plant to put out new green shoots. The more she used her gift, the stronger and more confident she became. The slouch of shame left her shoulders. The downcast look left her eyes. When she walked through the pack now, it was with a new, quiet dignity. She was no longer the rejected she-wolf. She was a woman with a secret, a purpose that belonged only to her. Meanwhile, in the Alpha's house, a very different kind of transformation was taking place. Conri's life, which was supposed to be a picture of perfect, destined bliss, was a gilded cage. Sierra was everything a destined Luna was supposed to be, beautiful, powerful, and from a strong bloodline. But she was also cruel, vain, and selfish. She complained constantly. The house wasn't grand enough. The warriors weren't respectful enough. She spent pack funds on expensive jewels and silks, dismissing the needs of the pack as trivial. She created drama and turned pack members against each other with whispered lies and sharp criticisms. The pack, which had once been a united, loyal family, was now fractured and filled with tension. Conri tried to reason with her, to explain the responsibilities of a Luna, but she would just laugh, a cold, tinkling sound. Why should I trouble myself with their petty problems? I am your destined mate. That is all that matters. The words felt wrong. The destined bond he felt for her was a powerful, obsessive pull, a force of nature, but it felt empty. It was like a magnificent painting with no soul. There was no warmth, no comfort, no friendship. His home was no longer a sanctuary. It was a place of constant conflict and walking on eggshells. It was during these tense, unhappy days that he began to see Briana differently. He would catch glimpses of her across the pack grounds. He saw the new straightness of her back, the calm purpose in her steps. He saw her helping an elderly wolf carry firewood, her smile gentle and genuine. He saw her sitting by the stream, not in sadness, but in a state of deep, peaceful contemplation. And every time he saw her, the hollow ache in his own chest, the one that had been there since the moment he rejected her, would throb with a fresh, sharp pain. It was regret. It was a deep, gut-wrenching knowing that he had made a catastrophic mistake. The destined bond with Sierra felt like a chain, while the severed bond with Briana felt like a ghost limb, a constant reminder of the warmth and wholeness he had so carelessly thrown away. He was the Alpha, the leader of hundreds, but he had never felt more alone or more wrong in his entire life. His perfect, destined mate was destroying his pack, while the woman he had rejected was quietly becoming the strongest and most whole person in it. A strange and silent sickness began to creep through the dark moon pack. It did not come with a fever or a cough, but with a deep, unnatural weakness. It started with the very old and the very young, leaving them listless and cold, their life force seeming to drain away as they slept. The pack doctors were baffled. Their medicines did nothing. Their knowledge was useless against this strange malady that clung to its victims like a shadow. A thick fog of fear and despair settled over the entire territory, smothering the usual sounds of life and laughter. In the face of this unknown terror, Sierra's true nature was revealed in the worst way possible. She declared that the sick were a lost cause. She demanded that Conri isolate them, or better yet, banish them from the territory entirely to protect the strong. An alpha cannot be burdened by the weak, she told him, her eyes hard. It is the way of nature. Conri looked at her, at this woman destiny had chosen for him, and felt a cold disgust settle in his stomach. This was not leadership. This was cowardice. Briana watched the suffering from her small cabin on the edge of the pack lands. She could feel the sickness in the air, a bitter, oily taste that made her new healing senses recoil. She felt the land itself crying out in pain. She knew, with a certainty that went down to her bones, that this was a sickness her unique power was meant to fight. But to step forward meant revealing her secret to everyone, to Conri, to the pack that had pitted her. It meant making herself vulnerable all over again. She wrestled with her fear for a long, tense night, but as the sun rose, her decision was made. This was not about her pride or her broken heart. This was about her pack. Her home. She walked into the center of the pack village where a makeshift hospital had been set up. The air was thick with the sound of soft crying and worried whispers. Conri was there, his face etched with frustration and helplessness. Sierra stood slightly apart, her arms crossed, a look of pure annoyance on her beautiful face. All eyes turned to Briana as she walked calmly towards the first cot, where a small, pale child lay shivering. "Briana, what are you doing?" "The doctors have already," Conri began, but his words died in his throat. Briana closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and reached for the well of power inside her. The silvery light, beautiful and ethereal, blossomed from her hands. It flowed over the small child like liquid starlight, seeping into his skin. A collective gasp rippled through the pack. The child's shivering stopped. A healthy pink color returned to his cheeks, and his eyes, once dull with sickness, fluttered open, clear and bright. A wave of pure, shocked awe passed through the crowd. Briana did not stop. She moved to the next person and the next. With each touch, the glorious silver light flared, driving out the shadowy sickness, filling the victims with warmth and vitality. She was tireless, a beacon of hope in the gloomy air. She was not just healing them, she was performing a miracle before their very eyes. Conri could only watch, his heart thundering in his chest. He saw the compassion on her face, the selfless use of this incredible gift she had hidden. He saw the pack watching her with a reverence they had never shown to Sierra. In that moment, any last shred of doubt was incinerated. Destiny was not a single path set in stone. It was a choice, and he had chosen wrong. He turned to Sierra, his alpha power radiating from him in a way it never had when he was with her. His voice, when he spoke, was low and final, cutting through the stunned silence. You have no love for this pack. You see its members as burdens. A true Luna strengthens her pack, she does not cull it. The mate bond was a mistake. I break it. You are nothing to me and you are no longer welcome here. Sierra's face twisted from shock into a mask of pure, ugly rage. You can't. The moon goddess herself chose me, she shrieked. In a flash, she shifted into her wolf form, a sleek, dark creature with bared fangs, and launched herself at Conri. But Conri was ready. His shift was instantaneous, a blur of muscle and fur fueled by a righteous fury and a newfound clarity. He was not fighting for a destiny he didn't want. He was fighting for the future he had chosen. The fight was fierce but short. Conri, with the strength of his conviction, easily overpowered her, pinning her to the ground. With a final, snarling command, he banished her from his lands forever. As she fled, wounded and defeated, a palpable tension lifted from the entire pack. Then Conri did something no one had ever seen an alpha do. He shifted back to his human form and walked directly towards Briana, who was still catching her breath from her healing. He did not stand over her. He did not command her. Instead, he went down on one knee in the dirt before her, bowing his head in a gesture of ultimate respect and submission. The pack watched, utterly silent. Briana, he said, his voice thick with emotion, raw and honest for all to hear. I was a fool. I was blind. I chose a cold, empty rule over the warm, beating heart of the most amazing person I have ever known. I rejected you and it was the greatest failure of my life. My heart has always been yours, I was just too stubborn to see it. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve you. But I am begging you from the bottom of my soul. Please will you accept me? Not as your destined mate, but as the man who loves you, who chooses you, every single day for the rest of his life. Will you be my true Luna? Tears welled in Briana's eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of release, of a healing that went deeper than any magic. She looked at this powerful, proud alpha on his knees for her. She saw the love and regret in his eyes and she knew it was real. This bond would be stronger than any destined one, because it was built on choice, on sacrifice, and on truly seeing one another. She placed her hand, still faintly glowing with silvery light, on his cheek. I accept you, Alpha Conri, she said, her voice clear and strong, carrying across the entire pack. I choose you too. As she spoke the words, a new bond snapped into place. It was not the shocking jolt of the first one, but a warm, golden, unbreakable thread of connection, woven from forgiveness and true love. The pack erupted. The cheers were deafening, a joyful roar of approval that shook the very trees. Conri rose to his feet and took Briana into his arms, kissing her deeply, a kiss that held all the promise of their future. They stood together, the alpha and his chosen Luna, bathed in the cheers of their pack and the warm light of the setting sun. Their story was just beginning. Their journey to find each other was full of pain and passion, but it was only the beginning. If you want to be the first to know what happens next in the stories of the Dark Moon Pack, to lose yourself in more tales of fierce love, second chances, and the strength it takes to choose your own destiny, make sure to subscribe. A whole world of romance and adventure is waiting for you just a click away.